A very good morning to you, colleagues, and welcome to the interim staff results presentation. To those that I haven't had a pleasure of meeting, my name is Nora Sihunwe. I head up the Human Resources function. And with me this morning, I'm joined by Tava, our CEO, and Vickers, our CFO. Earlier this morning, we released our interim results for the first half of this year. We also presented these to the analysts and investors. This session is now an opportunity for us as the Santam team to come together and to engage on these results, to reflect on the first half of this year, and to also then touch on the strategic priorities for the rest of the year. Please remember that this is your session to ask all the questions that you have. So send through those questions, and at the end of the discussion, we'll then go through all of the questions. To start us off, Tava, I know it's been a busy morning for you. If you can maybe share with us some of the key highlights that you've shared with our analysts, with our investors, and our shareholders.
Thanks, Nora, and good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to our session this morning. I think it's become recent tradition that, when we talk to analysts and to investors, that we also talk to our staff about our results and what's happening in the company, so that we're all on the same page about where we currently are. So we spoke this morning to investors, and I think just to start with some of the key messages, Nora, is that I think we've had a good underwriting performance and good investment performance for the first half of the year. Our earnings are significantly up on last year. And so it's been a really good and very positive message that we've put to the market. And so we've seen a good turnaround in motor, we've seen a good turnaround in power surge claims. And so that's a really positive message that the underwriting actions that we took last year, painfully so, are starting to yield results.
Yes.
But I think we can't get away from the fact that it's been raining a lot. Right,
Yes.
so I think you remember beginning of the year, there was just lots of rain everywhere. And then, of course, we had the Western Cape floods as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know you also touched on some of the challenges from a macroeconomic, that we faced. You spoke a little bit about our refresh strategy. Maybe if you can just touch on some of that, in terms of what we've had to deal with the first half of this year, and how we were able to overcome some of those challenges as well.
Yes, Nora, I think the tough macroeconomic environment is not something that's out there for all of us, right? So I think, for all our staff, ourselves, we are feeling it in our day-to-day lives. And I think the business is certainly no different, that it is facing pressure both with the global macro environment and both with the South African SA macro. But I think what does give me a level of comfort and optimism for the future is that we have an incredibly strong business, a very well-diversified business, a scale business that has a number one position within the South African environment. And so we have been able to weather the difficulty of that environment. But it's also important to say that weather is a big deal, right? So we've seen just recently the hurricanes making landfall in North America, I think over the last couple of days, right? And so globally, natural catastrophes are on the rise. We had our own last year in the form of KZN. And so that means that, we expect reinsurance rates to rise. We expect the cost of reinsurance within South Africa to continue to rise. And so I think that's not a phenomenon that's not unique to South Africa, but I think it's something that we are seeing globally. But I think for us as a leading player in South Africa, we do believe that a lot of these risks, as we've seen with some of the actions we've taken, are largely manageable into the future.
And maybe if you just touch then a little bit on our refresh strategy, because this is really a compass that is going to help us navigate, that economic challenge that you've spoken about. If you can just remind us some of the key highlights of our strategy to remind us of what that direction looks like for us.
Yes, Nora. So one of the key messages we gave to investors this morning is we've talked about addressing some of the drag on the performance of the business, particularly from weather-related perils, right? Is that we've taken short-term tactical actions, but I think in the longer run, for the continued sustainability and success of an already successful business, is that we did the strategic refresh earlier. And I think we've talked a lot about it, but I think just for emphasis is that the strategy refresh specifically, we've talked always about it's a refresh. And so
Yes.
that means we take the best of what's already working within the Santam group. We look at aspects where we believe we are not so strong and we need to improve on that. And so I think fundamentally this strategy is about growth. It's about strengthening and continuing with our leadership position in South Africa. It's about driving international expansion through our specialist business and Santam Re. And then I think an exciting area for me is definitely the partnership space, our partnership with the Sanlam Group, our partnerships with the MTN Group. And all of this largely underpinned by the use of technology and the use of data, because I think we are seeing it that our customers are evolving, their needs are evolving. We want to reach new customers in new ways, and so we must adapt as a business in order to be able to do this into the future. Maybe Vikas, I mean, you're new to the group. Just some of your perspectives on where we are with this journey.
I think from my perspective, Tava, I think it's very exciting. I joined quite recently, the beginning of this year, and I think first of all is I've been really received a warm welcome from staff, which I really appreciated. The strategy is new. There's been a lot of change within the business that staff had to deal with, but the big positive for me is that people are embracing the change and really making this work.
Yes.
So I'm very positive about the future. I think we're one of the biggest short-term insurers on the continent, and we can just grow even further from here.
So Vikas, I think today the market is buzzing about our results. We've released our interim results. If you can just take us high level, the salient points. We're talking about a solid performance. What does that mean?
Yeah, I think if you look through the results, as Tava also highlighted, it's been a challenging environment for us. The economy, we all know, is not performing as it should. We've experienced a lot of natural events, the rainfall that Tava mentioned, but we also had exposure to the earthquakes within Turkey. And despite that, our bottom line earnings more than doubled on last year. So I think it's truly something we can be proud of as an organization, that despite the challenges, it was heads down for everybody, and we responded both from a strategic perspective but also from a tactical perspective to deal with those challenges. So if you look at the kind of top line growth, GWP, we grew by 7% overall, but we also very much focused on the profitability of the business that we write. So we're not scared to cancel business where it's not profitable, which we've done so in particular within Santam Re.
Okay.
And if I strip that out, we actually achieved growth of 12%, which if you look at what the South African economic growth is, that's an extraordinary achievement. And if you then move to the earnings as well, underwriting profits well up on last year despite the significant weather-related losses that we've incurred, which is also a very good outcome. And then we had at least a little bit of wind from the back from investment markets, which performed much better than the first half of last year, which helped our investment returns both on the float portfolio but also on the shareholder capital portfolio, which also contributed to the strong growth.
Great. So what would you say as our CFO sort of keeps you awake at night, looking at what our performance has been and going into the rest of this year?
I think looking forward, we do expect a better second half of the year than the first half. But again, very much dependent on what the natural environment throws at us in the second half of the year. That's the one aspect that we can't control, of course. So that is one risk that we always must keep in mind. And then I think it's from within the businesses, the things that's under our control is we must be very diligent in controlling all of the risk, being very diligent on the writing, pricing, etc., to make sure that we focus on the profitability of the business that we write.
Thanks, Vikas. Tava, it does sound like our story is starting to change and is starting to sound a bit more positive, which is very encouraging. But now if we look at the second half of this year, because I think it's going to be very important that we are focusing on the right things. Also given the fact that we actually only have 5 months left. So we talk about a second half, but we've got 5 months left. What would you say are some of the strategic focus areas that as a team, as a Santam team, we need to come together and really just focus on?
So I think that's a good question, Nora. And I'm always at pains to remind a lot of people that, we are the amalgamation of many businesses within the Santam group, right? And so different parts of the businesses are different stages, implementing different actions. But I think a good starting point for me, Nora, is that we've just, started with the implementation of our new operating model, right, where we've effectively restructured the business into 6 key segments, right? And we deliberately started with the client-facing parts of our business, so that we are talking to our customers, we're ahead in that respect. But I think what's important for us and a key focus for us moving forward, Nora, is that it's very important that we're acutely focused on the client experience, right? So I think we all know insurance is traditionally a grudge purchase, and the service levels within insurance have been very difficult across the board. And so I think for us as a leading business within the South African environment, that we must really set the bar much higher for ourselves in terms of how we deliver service to our brokers, how we deliver service to our customers. And so we generically talk about the Santam experience, which is about our staff, our brokers, but I really would like us to focus very much on the delivery of the client experience, because I think that fundamentally differentiates us from a lot of the other players. And then I think we are still settling down as an organization into the new client-facing structure. I think we started this journey at the end of last year. We are now focusing a lot more on the shared services, because I fundamentally believe that that can deliver huge value in terms of how we run our business into the future. And so quite a lot of work happening within the shared space, services space. And then I think, Nora, I'm also quite excited about the new team, the new EXO team that we have on board. I think lots of challenges. I think if I remember last year this time, even as we went into the end of the year, lots of challenge to me as the head of the business, just around the diversity of our team. And I think the fundamental questions Nora was asked last year this time is, where are the women on the executive team? So I'm quite happy that we've been able to find very high caliber women to join our executive team. And so I think certainly I've found that the flow of information has certainly improved, Vickers, but just having a lot more women on our executive team. And so I'm quite happy about that, and I think that's quite progressive for us as an organization. And then I think, Nora, the performance, and I think Vickers has talked about this, that the underwriting performance is very central. I think it's about the credibility of us as an organization, that we must get that underwriting margin back into that 5 to 10% range. So we're currently at 3%. And so we must simply get it up. And so a lot of the underwriting actions, it's really slow, painful, detailed work. A lot of it primarily in Atang's business and in Andrew's business. But we simply just must stay disciplined and just stay the course. And we're now moving to talk about focusing on property rates. And so I think, quite a lot of work to be done in that space. But just around getting the underwriting performance of the business back into that 5 to 10% range is a key priority for us for the rest of the year.
Okay. And you spoke about delivering on an excellent client experience, right? And I think maybe being head of human resources, I know that what is going to be important is for us to just match that with an excellent employee experience. So maybe if you can share, I know you've been on the CEO roadshows, if you can share a little bit about that and why the roadshows, why it was important for you together with the executive team to go on the roadshows, and the other, what we can expect in the next coming month from an engagement perspective with our clients, with our employees.
Nora, I must say, look, I personally loved the roadshows. I think that was just really a stroke of genius from your team. Just to get myself, I was new to the organization when we started them. And then I think to be able to take the executive team and to spend time with a lot of the men and women that work in this business. Remember, we spent time on the phone calls, listening to brokers, I think we shared. I think the hit was what I eat for breakfast and my
Yes.
loss of hair. I think which most of the staff particularly liked. But I think Nora, the roadshows were really about engaging with staff, right, and really having face-to-face conversations, particularly after a time where we had been working from home a lot, and I think we had lost that ability to communicate face to face, right? And almost as a precursor to encouraging everybody, that interaction and collaboration is important. Face to face communication is important for us. But I think for us as an organization to really interact and to engage on some of the challenges that we're facing, and also to celebrate the successes, and so to be able to get out to a lot of the big offices across our business was really heartening for me, to meet the men and women who are largely at the core face of engaging with clients and with brokers. And so I particularly quite enjoyed that. And because I think you managed to join us for some of those.
Yes, I did join
Yeah.
for some of them, and similar to you, I really enjoyed it. It was good to meet the people that deliver on a daily basis, because we're a people business. If you look
Yes.
at the product and service that we provide, it's not something tangible that gets manufactured. So our success comes from the success of our people, and that's why it's important that we should have that engagement, and really getting people together to also be innovative going forward.
But maybe just coming back, because Nora, you asked about client servicing and people. And what's quite interesting is we've traditionally always shared financial metrics, with our investors, right? And so today we also started talking to our investor about non-financial metrics, right? So we're putting it out there that we are taking our customer experience very seriously. We're taking our employee well-being and engagement very seriously, and we're also taking our ESG commitments within the business very, very seriously. And so, typically when you put, our view on such issues into the public domain, that does mean that we're actually quite serious around customer service and employee well-being and engagement within our business.
I guess that's why we will start seeing quite a lot of things coming from the people or HR function or team. So we know that the Barrett is out there. We're currently sitting at.
Nora, it's another survey.
I know.
It's another survey, right? And I know I've had questions, and maybe a question for you, say, Nora, we're tired of the surveys, right? There's got to be a better way to do this.
And
Yeah.
I think that we will find a better way, But what is important, the reason we have these surveys is to really hear from our employees. As HR, we don't want to create solutions for HR. We want to create solutions for the business. So it's through these surveys that we get the feedback to say, this is what's working, this is what's not working. So thank you very much to the 85% of our employees that have completed. I'm very happy to share that 100% of EXCO has completed the survey, because it's also important, as a leadership team, that we also, give our feedback on the culture of this business. The values is one of the things that we are embedding quite hard in our business, because we truly believe that it's through us living our values that we'll really start creating a healthy environment. Maybe Vickers, if you can share, out of the 4 values, which is the one that that you choose as your favorite? I know all of them probably are, but what is the one that is your favorite?
I think my favorite one is innovation, because I think that's what's going to make us successful going into the future. Is really to look at solving problems in a new way for our clients, but also from a people perspective, finding really new ways to motivate our people as well. And the world we're living in a very fast changing world. If you just think how the world looked like 10 years ago and where we are today, we actually also need to adapt very quickly to a changing world. That's how we'll get ahead.
Maybe a bit of a tough question. Do you think we can innovate while we work from home?
It depends. I think it depends. It depends. It depends whether you want to innovate alone or innovate collaboratively, right? So I think there is something in there, right? That that if I think about it and say, okay, look, am I productive by myself at home? I think on any one given day, I could argue that actually if I buckle down to it, I'm probably more productive on my own at home. But the reality of it is that Vikas and I do need to talk quite often about what's happening in the business. And so I do find a lot of value in being able to engage and talk to Vikas, without setting up formal meetings too much. And so we can just literally see each other, talk about things, engage, very, very quickly.
And I agree with that. It's I've seen is actually where the best and most creative ideas actually were generated, where people were in one room having a conversation, challenging ideas, and eventually coming up with the best out of a number of options. And that's something you only get if you're actually engaging in a face-to-face basis.
But I think also, Nora, beyond that, we started by talking about, broker experience, customer experience. And I think for me, that's usually a good starting point to say, our real purpose, our stated purpose is to safeguard what's important to our clients, right? So if we are talking about customer experience, client experience, right, then I think we must use that as a guide as to what is required and what is needed of us, right? So if you kind of look at our call centers, the people talking directly to clients, talking directly to brokers, most of our teams are in office pretty much almost close to 5 days a week, full time most of the time. And if you talk to brokers and you ask them about our service standard, I think there is a demand that we are able to pick up the phones, we're able to provide a consistent level of service. And I think the flexibility that we have within our work from home framework, I think allows us to manage that range of possibly your IT professionals who could work alone, and then the need for collaboration, and then the need where we're needing to pick up calls on a daily basis and keep the service standards. And so I think it's a sufficiently flexible framework in my view, Nora.
Okay. And part of what's going to set us up from a financial performance perspective is managing our talent. And that talks to also just creating opportunities for our talent. If you can just talk to us about, some of the opportunities, talent mobility between the Santam group, what are the plans around that, and what have you seen already working really well?
Yes, so I think Vikas is a good example of talent mobility. I think we're fortunate enough to be able to bring Vikas from the Sanlam Group, and then I think similarly we're very fortunate to be able to move Henny to the Sanlam Group. And between Vikas and myself, we still work very closely with Henny in his new role in corporate finance. And so the movement of staff between us and our parent company, I think, has certainly improved over the last couple of months. And I think what we must do better, Nora, in my view, is that we must get a lot more movement within the Santam Group itself, right? So I know you've just completed a common policy just to govern how we move people within the group, because I do believe that we must get better cross-fertilization of ideas within the Santam Group itself. That we've got people who've worked in a particular area for a long time, and I think we're saying that one of our key values is collaboration. Right. And so I think the movement of people to a large extent does facilitate that. And I think it's also important that we give people opportunities to do something different. And I think I'm hearing a cry for people asking to say, can I actually do something different? I've been in a particular area, can I move to a different area? And I think we must facilitate that moving forward.
And what are some of the exciting things we can look forward to for the next 5 months?
For the next 5 months, wow! It seems the year is almost ending. I think some of the maybe just even if you look at the last couple of months, I've been quite excited. I mean, it's been a very intense couple of months, as we can't take away from the fact that we've gone through a massive amount of change within our business. We know why we're changing our business. It's to prepare us for the future, and I think that puts us in a good space. But it does, take a toll in terms of just the amount of change that we've driven through the business. But despite that, we've seen the Pulse survey come out at 85%. I think that's encouraging. But I think we've closed on the MTN, partnership. We've launched Home Plus. I'm quite excited about what we're able to do with the Home Plus. Within our broker solutions business, we've launched the Smart Protect as part of managing risks within our client base. And then within MyWay, so you're going to be seeing a lot more of the MyWay dark pink within the
Series.
series, right? Within the next couple of months, and so we launched the Move for Value campaign. Really exciting. And I think Burton and the team. I think this certainly sets my way, for better growth into the future. And then we've also launched Santam Switch, right, which is a fully end-to-end digital on-demand insurance capability, right? So, and I think that speaks again to innovation within the Santam group. So, lots of exciting initiatives that are starting to take root. But then I think looking forward is that this digital play, I think for us, becomes quite an important part of our value proposition into the future. But I also believe, Nora, that innovation and digital initiatives shouldn't just be for customers and clients out there, that within our business, how we manage our business, how we manage people, how we deal with our business internally, that we must also innovate into the future. So I know within the shared services space, we are spending a lot of time re-looking and thinking through our IT strategy and our IT environment. But I think when you kind of put it all together and say, why are we doing this, right? Is that fundamentally we must be responding to customer and to client needs, right? A big part of our business is driven through brokers, and so we must service and manage our brokers' business, and that remains a core part of our business moving forward, even as we develop all these other propositions. And then maybe Vikas, on the finance side, what's exciting? What should we be looking forward to?
Yes.
I've got a question for Nora, but it's got to do with bonuses.
I think probably the exciting part for our shareholders of this morning is kind of the mention of a special dividend. So they will be getting a present from us once the Sun JV transaction is closed. But I think we are looking forward to hopefully a much more exciting second half with much better performance. And within our kind of shared value model, as well as that, hopefully for staff, we can also look forward to a much better bonus outcome than last year.
But what I heard is I think for us to look forward to that better bonus is it really going to require all hands on deck. We're going to we have to make sure that we are focusing on the right things. So I think that's the biggest message, if that was your question, Tava.
Yes, I thought I'd ask it before somebody asks me that particular question. Kind of really throw it back at everybody and say, look, where we are at the half year, as Vikas has said, is a really great outlook. Really, solid performance for the first half of the year. And so what I can say is that yes, things are looking up, but we still have the balance of this year to just make sure that we continue to drive our premium growth, we continue to deliver on the underwriting, and then on the strategic initiatives, which still take some time. So if you look at what we're doing in My Way, the results don't come immediately. We're spending the money now, the growth comes later, but we must get traction even on the non-financial metrics, right? So that, in terms of, embedding our operating model, that's taking root. And then I think another important aspect, that I'm always at pains to emphasize is that, risk management and assurance across our business is equally important, right? So working with all our assurance providers, group internal audit, Sharice's area in risk management and enterprise risk management, that's a fundamental part of how we manage our business. And I think just to emphasize to everybody that, that we take that seriously as well.
Thanks, Tava. I'm starting to see questions coming through, and please, just colleagues, remember to send through your questions. Maybe any last closing remarks before we get into the questions?
I think maybe just in terms of what I might call key focus areas is that embedding our operating model is absolutely important. We've been through a lot of change. We must simply get through that, so that it does position us for the future. The underwriting actions remain very important, particularly focusing on the property class. We are starting to see the benefit of using data in the business, particularly with the geocoding initiative. So I'm really, really pleased about the progress we've made about that. And then My Way, we must simply get the growth firing on all cylinders. But I think we've got a good launch in terms of the Move for Value. And then client experience, broker experience, right? It must be a key differentiator for us as the Santam business. So we've set ourselves very, very steep aspirational targets around the standard that we expect from a client experience perspective. And so I know Kwatelani and her team are spending a lot of time with all the different business units just around how do we get that client experience up. And so that's an important one. And then leveraging our partnerships with Sanlam and the MTN. And then, of course, ESG. So within Tabiso's area, just the focus around climate risk assessment, another key important area. And you may or may not know this, but we published our call statement, right, which is really a big deal, right, which says, what's our perspective on the usage of coal and the covering of coal within our business. And so it's quite a long list of things that we need to focus on for the rest of the year, but pretty much spread out across the business. But I think as we move into the questions, I think it's just to really thank everybody for what's been a very, in my view, solid performance for the first half of the year in an environment where we were shifting and changing the look and feel and the structure of our business. So I think we end the first half of the year in certainly a very good position, and I think I'm fairly quite optimistic about where we then go to in the second half of the year.
Okay. So I'm going to go straight into it. The first question is, what are the long-term growth prospects for the group, and how do we balance this growth with being sustainable, profitable moving forward? So just how do we grow and still remain profitable?
I think it's always an interesting question when we look at growth and profitability, and you can almost want to think of them as mutually exclusive, to say, oh, if you grow, then you can't get profitability. If you get profitability, then you can't grow. I think what we are asking of the business is that we must be in a duality environment where we are asking for both. We must grow and we must be profitable, right? And so I think we need both of those two metrics to move together, right? And I think the way we've structured our business allows us to be able to achieve that. So you've got diversity by channel, allows us to reach different customer segments. And I think you've seen that within our business where we've had loss-making business. If you look at Santam Re, we've been quite aggressive around saying that business or premiums within that business do not meet our return hurdle requirements. And so we've been very comfortable to cancel that business and to streamline some of those portfolios. And so this and world for us is very important, that we must grow and we must grow profitably.
Great. And how do you think the industry will change in the coming years?
Maybe let's start with an outside-in perspective. I'll share my views, but because any views of how you've coming into the short-term industry, anything you've observed?
I think from my perspective, ESG is going to play a much bigger role going forward. We are dealing with climate change, and we'll need to find very innovative ways together with our clients to manage the risks. And then we are also dealing with, in the South African context, with challenges from an infrastructure perspective. But again, we'll need to find ways to work even more closely with government, local and national government to address those specifically. I think within the broker space, we are very strong. We're going to remain strong, but as the client base change over time, there's going to be much more need also for direct engagement, and that's where we'll need to scale the direct business and the franchise business in particular. And then we've also seen over the last number of years quite a shift to your newer type of risk mitigation, like cyber, for example, and I think those will just continue to develop in the next couple of years. If you want to add anything, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I think, sometimes things move slowly and then they move very fast, right? So I think we can't underestimate the impact of technology on the way we run our business and the expectations of our customers. And, I often talk about, into the future, right? What happens when we move into a world where we see more self-drive cars, right? So you talked about cyber insurance. So maybe that becomes the thing that we start to focus on and insure. Right, so I think most people you have now come across, artificial intelligence in some form or other, whether it's ChatGPT, that some of these developments do fundamentally into the future change how we think about managing our business. But I see a lot of these developments as enabling us to run our businesses certainly a lot better. But I think for us and for all our staff, it does mean we do need to keep up. right? We need to keep up with the technology. We need to think about, what are the right use cases that we can bring within our business in order to enable our business to be certainly more successful. I think the one thing that I worry or think about a lot is that we mustn't get left behind, right? That we must move ahead and take advantage of these new technologies in order to keep us a leading player, within the insurance sector. So the impact of technology, I think, to a large extent, is critical. And then I think, when you look at our staff and our people, is that just our own well-being, right, is also important. I think if you go back, many years, because probably when you started working, people didn't talk about staff well-being, right? But I think everybody knows that I'm a father, I have 3 children, I like to do the school drop-offs, and so that balance, I think for me is very, very important, right? And so I think just our whole personal staff well-being, I think, will become an increasingly important topic for us, and I think. For us as a business, it's something that we take seriously, and I think we should continue to take seriously into the future.
And we've got, it's more a comment, because I also, and if you remember, Tava, during our CEO roadshows, there's a lot of comments that comes from our employees, because we always say that they are client facing, so they know the pain points that are clients. So there's one that we have that says, Santam scores are very high in certain areas, which have resulted in losing clients who have been with Santam for over 20 years. This needs to be looked at in terms of renewing our retention methods, as I know of many family and friends who have moved over to our competition. This negatively impacts our business, and word of mouth can hurt us even more. Some food for thought. So that's just food for thought. You don't need to answer. But I think for me, this speaks to us saying, it's important that we constantly give those food for thoughts, because we know what the pain points are. Just a question, are there markets, geographies outside of South Africa that we are particularly interested in, given the subdued economic environment in South Africa?
So I think it's important that, it's always said that the grass looks greener, on the other side, right? And so you look at a market like Turkey, which is earthquake prone. You look at a market like Japan, which is earthquake prone. But you still find that it is still an insurable market, right? And so South Africa has traditionally been a cat benign market. And so even though we've seen, the impact of KZN, we still fundamentally believe that South Africa is an insurable market. So I think we absolutely need to be clear that our first priority in terms of our new strategy is that we must remain dominant and maintain our leadership position in South Africa. This remains our core market. We must continue to win in South Africa. And then with respect to other markets, I think we'll continue to work with the Sanlam Alliance JV into the rest of Africa. And that gives us a good footprint and exposure into the rest of Africa. And I think we've seen the good results already, Nora, that the premium income that's coming through from the Africa business has increased over the last 6 months. So I think that gives us a good source of growth. And then within our Santam Re business, where we write follow shares, small line sizes into the rest of the world, again, that gives us good growth into the future, but we must write again that business on a profitable basis. Because I don't know if we've got anything to add on that.
Yeah, I think maybe just to add on South Africa specifically, there was many people will make the statement, but South Africa is ex-growth and Santam is ex-growth, specifically given our market share. But personally, I think there's a lot of opportunity still within the market. There's a large segment of the market that we underpenetrated, especially the lower end of the market, where JVs, like for example, our partnership with MTN will enable us to tap into that market. Within the smaller commercial space, I do think there's opportunity for us to grow market share. So yeah, I think there's growth opportunities still left in South Africa as well. And we shouldn't think of South Africa as kind of a low growth market necessarily.
Thanks, because I'm going to take one more question. We've got quite a couple, but we will answer the questions and we will publish the answers. We just don't have, unfortunately, the luxury of time. Tava, what do you see as some of the low-hanging fruits that we can achieve as a business in the short term?
Wow, that's a
And maybe to squeeze in, once you've answered that,
Yeah.
there's a question around just your thoughts around the impact of BRICS, what BRICS will have in our industry.
Okay, so interesting two questions. I think in terms of low-hanging fruit, I'm particularly excited about what I'm seeing in the partnerships business, right? It's not to understate the extent of innovation and focus that we have within our bigger businesses, our specialist businesses, our core broker business within our Santam Re businesses. I think those are well-established businesses that are firing on all cylinders. I think My Way, in my view, gives us a real chance, to fight hard and to bat hard within the direct and that very competitive space. But the partnerships business that Gloria leads, I think for me is an area where I see some low-hanging fruit, particularly with our partners. So if you kind of think of the fact that we are part of the Santam Group, we have millions of customers within the Santam Group, we have millions of customers within the Santam Group, but if you actually look at the overlap and the cross-sell between the two organizations, is that it is actually very low. And so I think there's an opportunity there for us to tap into that and to acquire those customers at a much lower acquisition cost. And I think if you look at the detail within our business, what you will find is that within our advisor force, where we work closely with the Sanlam Group, is that it is actually growing double digit. And so, my challenge, to Atang and to Nazli, the team that run that particular business, is can we not do more to scale up, particularly where we already have access to those particular customers. And so I think for me, that's an area that we must drive a lot more aggressively. I know, as I've mentioned, that within the shared services environment is that we are doing a lot of work there, but I think there is opportunity for us to use and to deploy our technology for the better of the good of the organization in a slightly much more efficient way. And then let's talk about BRICS. So I'll pass that on to Vikas.
Very, very briefly, probably like an elevator answer.
I think BRICS over the long term should stimulate, I think, economic growth across the different countries into Africa, which in itself will open up opportunities for us as well. As Tava mentioned, through the Santam JV, we operate across many markets within Africa. And then outside of Africa, our Santam Re business also operate within some of the BRICS markets. I think as we move to much closer collaboration between the countries, where the markets open up a bit more, that in itself will create new opportunities for us.
Yeah, and then maybe just a further comment on that is that with BRICS, and I imagine the question was probably alluding to to the geopolitical tensions and the fragmentation that we're seeing in the global environment. I think it's important just to remember that the Santam Group is 105 years old, right? And in 105 years, you've lived through 2 world wars. You've lived through the transition to democracy in South Africa. You've lived through lots of ups and downs. And so while geopolitical fragmentation is topical at the moment, the Santam Group has lived through much, much more trying times. And I think it really does speak and is testament to the strength of the group through all these different ups and downs as we see either locally or within the geopolitical arena.
Thanks, Tavan, because lots of questions that have come through. As mentioned, we will answer and distribute those. I think it does highlight the need for us to engage more because there are lots of questions really relating to the business, relating to what are we doing actually about customer experience, what are we doing around our premiums that are seen to be too high, what are we doing around load shedding. So we will, we'll distribute those to the relevant EXCO members as well and just make sure that the answers are distributed. In closing, Tava, last words? to the business?
No, thank you very much. I think in the opening we said, it's always important when we talk externally around our results that we also talk internally with our staff. So this is typically a very short session. We are spending the rest of the day talking to investors about the performance of the group. But I always particularly enjoy this session when we talk to staff, the nature of the questions, which I think for me fundamentally says, that our staff and everybody, they're really invested and engaged in the business. And I really just want to close off. Thank you, Vickers. Thanks, Nora, for joining me on this panel today. But I think just really to thank the many people that work within our business, that are at the core face, working with our brokers, working with our clients, acknowledge that we are in a state of change in order to prepare the business for the future, right? And really just to thank everybody for adopting our values, exercising a level of patience with each other as we transition this business, because I know it can be a little bit stressful, but really just to thank everybody for your immense contributions over the last 6 months, and to ask you to continue to remain focused and to continue to put your best foot forward over the next 6 months to the end of the year. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.